My main focus is to bring it to people that dealing and suffering from PTSD and their families, which are highly affected from their loved ones struggling. We do it through agriculture, growing the plants from the seeds to the plant to the fruit. The vision is that every community or neighborhood will have a center that can facilitate diverse population.
Welcome to the Food Garden Life Show. We think that growing and cooking together builds families and builds communities.
Our goal is to inspire and inform with stories and ideas about gardening, food, and people, and we give gardeners permission and confidence to challenge the rules.
Brought to you by Emma and Stephen Biggs. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hey everyone, I'm Emma Biggs, and thank you for hanging out with us today on the Food Garden Life Show. I'm a Gen Z gardener, author, speaker, and blogger, and my passion is growing tomatoes, trying new and unusual crops, and saving seeds. I'm also the author of the kids' gardening book, Gardening with Emma, and my co-host here on the show is my dad, Stephen.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephen Biggs, food gardening guy, horticulturist, author, and horticultural journalist. I remember a conversation I had a few years ago with Frank, a former theology student working for the contractor who was renovating my house. And Frank and I were in my backyard talking about my garden when, out of the blue, he commented that I must be a spiritual person. I think he saw my eyebrows rise up in surprise, and so he went on to explain that creating and caring for a garden is a very spiritual thing. I had never thought of myself as being especially spiritually enlightened, and I'd certainly never made that connection between gardening and spirituality. But it resonated with me. It made me think back to times before that when I would come home from stressful days at the office and find peace and a sense of purpose in my garden. How about you? I've often wondered if this is a common thing for gardeners. Today on the podcast, we explore the idea of healing through growing. We travel today to Israel to meet Nachum Lamour-Fridman, and he's using plants and growing as part of the programming at a center that he runs for PTSD sufferers and their families. He realized the power of growing when, in the depths of his own PTSD, being outdoors and amongst plants was one of the things that helped him rise up and begin to heal. The Sustainability Center, called Borgani, is located in his own community, which is a kibbutz, a collective community. The Borgani Sustainability Center includes a greenhouse and farm and sells food baskets to the community. It brings together agriculture, technology, and education. In addition to agriculture, participants make furniture and art. Nachum's dream is to create a model that can be used to help PTSD sufferers everywhere. If you're serious about food gardening, you can get my twice-monthly newsletter on foodgardenlife.com, and when you sign up, you get 2 guides, 20 small-space food gardening hacks, and grow figs where you think you can't in cold climates.
Do you have show ideas, questions, or feedback?
We want to hear what you think. So tell us. If you drop by foodgardenlife.com, you can email us, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we hang out under the handle Food Garden Life.
And you can also find me on Instagram as EmmaBiggs_grows, and you can also find me on my website, emmabiggs.ca.
A shout out today to Tommy, who enjoyed the Backyard Honeybee episode last week with Justin Manus. And a shout out to Dave, who enjoyed our show with Julia DeMacos talking about her journey into gardening. And a thanks to Cindy, who sent a show idea. And Cindy, we're really glad that you're enjoying the show. A shout out to Joanne, a listener who enjoyed my lemon dilemma post on social media. And if you didn't see that one, it was fun. I just picked all my Meyer lemons before putting those bushes outside for summer. And I did a picture with a question mark, and I spelt out the words curd and sorbet in lemons. And a shout out to Dawn, a listener who saw my social media post about the fruit that grows next to my garage. Dawn, to answer your question, it's a quince, and it makes a fabulous jelly, but I also love to poach some of it with lemon. A hello to our listeners on Reality Radio 101. We really appreciate your feedback, and we'd love everybody's feedback. Drop us a line, share your thoughts through foodgardenlife.com. And now, here is our chat with Nachum Lamour-Fridman from the Borgani Center in Israel.
Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today, Nachum.
Thank you for having me. It's a big pleasure for me.
We're delighted that you're joining us and joining us from further afield than we've ever had a guest join us. So it's a pretty special episode, but you're doing some really special work, weaving together plants and people and community. Before we talk about what you're doing, though, if we could talk about your own path and how plants and the outdoors helped you when you had PTSD.
I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for the compliments. Most of the time, I don't see what I do as something unique, but we'll start with my past. I was recruited, drafted to the army in Israel. It's mandatory service. I went to a volunteer unit, to a combat unit, and I've been in the field for really intensive period of time. And the army, whatever the army needs to do is never nice. Army is never a good, positive context. We're waiting to build the army of trees and light, but for now, most of the armies are practicing the negative side of life. Being inside this environment and being with the civilian population, need to work to a military purpose inside the civilian population, really complex. And it affected my soul and affected my capability to engage reality in a way. And I tried to show to the world that everything is okay because of ego, because we are fighters, we are men, many reasons. But the main reasons were that I didn't share with myself what I feel, and I was mostly into shame and guilt instead of looking for the bright side of life. And when people aid me, I started to claim my life back. And after a few years of therapy and growing from the inside to the outside, I started to do what I do today and walk that path.
So can you explain for us, for our listeners, what you are doing today?
Yes, I would love to. I'm developing and evolving a model for a sustainability community center that inside the diverse things we do inside, fields we touch and explore. So there's the opportunity to facilitate people in different challenges of life. And my main focus is to bring it to people that are dealing and suffering from PTSD and their families, which are highly affected from their loved ones struggling. We do it through agriculture, growing the plants from the seeds to the plant to the fruit, to bring it to the client so they feel they can see the whole process and feel happy and see other people happy from what they did. So they have value to what they do. It's not a charity. No one likes to be in the position that people need all the time to give to him or her. So we try to make every little part of what we do with the value chain, the way to do it and what you do. but mainly how you do it. So we grow vegetables and plants, and we make compost. We build furniture and art from all kind of scrap materials from the industry and the agriculture where I live, which is a pretty unique place. We try to bring all of the right institutions and NGOs and partners to this, so the model can spread and not stay in one place. The vision is that every community or neighborhood will have a center that can facilitate diverse population. We didn't invent the idea, we're just trying to engage it to our reality.
And maybe that's a good lead into talking about your reality. I remember we spoke before, and you were talking about the challenges of dealing with PTSD in a kibbutz setting where there's a certain mindset. And I wonder if you could elaborate on that for us.
Thank you. I don't know how much the listeners and you guys know about the kibbutz, which is a little bit unique. It's a common way of living as a community to share the resources, the means for production, and to share the cultural life. The main value is bilateral, I don't know the exact term in English, but to be responsible to each other as community, as neighbor, as one big family in a way. And so we have all kind of industry and agriculture. We have big education system. We live on the beach, and it's in the middle of 3 nature reserves, also a birding site for migrating birds, one of the largest in the world. We also sitting next to Mount Carmel, just on the downhill from Mount Carmel, the far south end of the chain of the mountains. And you can find all kind of history and all kind of human activities for at least 60,000 years, which is an amazing setting to be living inside. In that atmosphere, we have also a really, really strong culture of work, of the value of work, that each one should give as much as he or she can. And sometimes in a really small community, when people don't function normally in a way, so when not everyone knows the reasons, what's behind it, can bring up many, many challenges. It came with financial sanctions sometimes. It came with problem with being employed, to finding a job, and a job that will be able to facilitate the flexibility that I needed through time. Because part of the time, especially when I was untreated, I was dysfunction, sometimes was almost a zombie, you can say, not eating, not sleeping, not communicating, just hiding inside my little cave. Slowly, with therapy, with people that aid me, when people started to help me, so I was able to work more and do more. So now I can do more and more, and sometimes I'm functioning even higher than the normal. And sometimes I cannot, but I have the ground to the resilience to engage all kind of different period of times. For example, the last 21 days for me was really, really intense, because we had one of the persons that as a protest, he hurt himself because of mistreating the veterans in Israel, especially on the field of post-traumatic and TBI, traumatic brain injury. Now it's for 21 days that there's a big protest, so everything is more emotional, more strong. I'm wearing my OK mask less, and people started to say we're taking off the masks. We're not hiding our disability, our struggle. So it's kind of really interesting movement now.
The OK mask. I've never heard that term before. That's really descriptive. There's more comfort than acknowledging what people are dealing with.
Yeah, I think that part of it is what we are able to do now, to see each other and speak it to each other from different continents, different time zones. society is more connected, and the younger generation are smarter, faster, more equipped for this kind of society. They grew up into this connectivity. The people that are now are the mainstream, also in the social media, talking more about it. You can see it in the media, in the films, in the music, in the art. We're more connected, and the information flows fast, and the younger generations not afraid to show what they feel and to express it. It's more integral to their communication with other people. So it's coming out more and more. You see it on art, in the movies, in the theaters, in the music. Also, inside the army, you can see more awareness. The research and the flow of information, of new therapy ways, bringing more people to approach therapy. It's less of a stigma. You hear about rock stars and movie stars that go into therapy and coming back and claim their career back. It's not just the closed institution people always think about. And also, the society feels the pain and the cost of not treating trauma and post-trauma, not only from the army background, from all kinds of backgrounds. Society address what she needs to address, and we do it.
Let's maybe go from there and talk about addressing it using agriculture and plants. And maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about some of what you're doing with agriculture and plants in your programming. And maybe also, Nachum, I know there's a special space that you told me about, a former quarry with a very historic background. So maybe we can start there.
Okay, so I'll try to do it through my own personal story. Because I was unfunctional almost at any level when I really started therapy, when I started to understand I have the PTSD and I need to deal with it. My way through therapy was that agriculture, which was a passion of me from childhood, helped me to go out from home and be more active. When I was active enough, I looked for a place to do it for more people, because I have a community to care. I found an old quarry from the Roman Byzantine time, which they took the stones, they carved the stones to build the ancient water aqueduct. When the kibbutz was in his early days, they grew cattle in there. That's where they were doing all treating the cattle, and they farm it in the fields. And it was standing as a garbage place for 20 years almost, 19 years. I came inside and started to clean it. And it was part of my therapy, because in the beginning I was able to be there for 5 minutes maybe, because it's a quarry and you control from all around. And it was stressful for me. Today, when I go there, it's a stone womb. So it's a place that nurtures life. And this journey that took me a few years, I want to facilitate it to others. So today it's a little bit cleaner. We have a little planetary with all the seedlings inside, and we clone some herbs and succulents and vegetables. We make the little plantiers for where we grow our organic farm, which is 200 meters from there. We have a little studio that we build from scraps, from all kind of wood from the trash. A studio to do exactly what the studio was built from, out from scraps. We have big plans to walk the field, to make it nicer and to be able to facilitate more yoga and therapy through movement and music.
Okay. So you've always loved agriculture, and then you've taken it to a whole other level, and you've created this special space, which I guess now you're sharing with other people as well and bringing in other helpful things you can do.
What I do is just a model. I have to evolve all the time and make better all the time and find the right partners. And because now I'm able to facilitate few people every time. I want it to be live, that people will know that they can be there 24/7. They can always come and to drink a cup of tea or to walk and have some therapy sessions. It's a work in progress, yeah.
It goes beyond the growing, but it's also a hub. You described it as a womb, I think, but it's like a hub where people can go for support as well as growing.
That's the vision and the model, and it's based on my experience, my own personal way. But for my own personal way, I saw so many other people struggling with the same challenges, but from their universe. It brings me to the point that maybe my story is from the army, and it's hard for me, things that I experienced or needed to do in my army service, but it doesn't matter from what in life. If there's something that bother you or burden you or impacting a person's ability to choose what he or she does in life, they should address it. So it's also for, I don't know, just for people that want to explore their inner way and to look for more hobbies, and also as a growing space, a growing bed, you can say, if we bring it back to agriculture. I try always to remember to bring this metaphor. When I recruited to the army, I was a young plant, really strong and proud and growing strong and fast. And the storms I met in life, the wind, the drought, the fire, made me break down, and not in a good way, actually, to sit in the same space and to be a little bit rotten, even, you can say. And when good people, and when I also was part of the process, put some air into the pile, cover it, bring heat, water, whatever it was needed in the right time, the plant started to grow again from the compost pile. And today I'm growing back. So it's like the circle. In nature, we don't have any garbage at all. We have just materials. We have the circle.
That circularity.
So that's a perspective. Yeah, that's something I try to, a way of seeing things I try to bring to people so they can try and see reality, to check if they want to see reality through those eyes. And to look for it also in relationship with people, with themselves, to accept that we have all kind of emotions and feelings, that it's okay that we have it all. It's part of our own circle. And sometimes we cry, so we have rain. Sometimes we are angry, so we have the fire. Sometimes we just want to rest, like the sea, to move with the waves and the water. And sometimes we want to nurture, like the soil.
You've been doing a lot to spread the word of what you're doing. One of the things that you did is you spoke to the Knesset. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Because I learned that sharing is caring, in a way. I try to share people the idea that they need to share because of the reality that untreated trauma and post-trauma in Israel is really common. I speak wherever I can, in any forum or quorum I can. And I was honored, I was invited by Ophir Sofer. He's a member of the Israeli parliament, of the Knesset. And he's the chairman of the subcommittee to check, that was in the last government, to check the mistreating of the veterans. I spoke shortly on Zoom, the main things I tried to do is to urge the politicians to do, not to wait, because the problem is burning, the problem is existing now. And that I claim that untreated trauma is like terminal cancer or autoimmune disease. Because when you don't treat the most important parts of your body, the body will collapse. And the state is the same like the human body. It's have parts in it, and if they won't work together and take care of the sensitive parts that can be the strongest, like the heart or the stomach or the brain, for a reason they are protected the way they are.
What we'd maybe love is, and you've, I think, touched on this already, but let me ask you about advice if people with PTSD or with family members who have PTSD are tuning in. What would be a couple of your top pieces of advice for them to start to move forward?
My advices are not. I'm not a doctor, but I have a little bit experience. So the main advice is to share, not to stay alone, not if you see someone that you think is hurting, try to give a hand or a good word, or ask his surroundings, her family. I think the best way is to approach the person himself with sensitivity. Try not to be judgmental. When you're the one that's feeling those feelings or have those symptoms or experiences, to share, to talk, to find the right safe environment. It can be a friend, it can be a family, it can be professional caregiver. It can be, if you're in school, it can be your teacher or your counselor. There's NGOs that do it. There's so many hotlines. And the second advice refers to that, is to own the knowledge, to read, to explore, to ask questions, also yourself. And also, we have so much information connected to us with technology. So to find the information, not to feel that there is nothing to do, because there's so much to do. And the third advice would be, you're the most special person in the world, but at the same time, what you feel is not that different from what other people feel or needed to address in past and in present time. So even that every person feelings are a whole universe and unique and refer to his entire or her entire existence, other people feels the same. There are more universes around us. We can learn from, we can hug, we can get energy from, we can give energy. And sometimes offering help helps us more. So we can be selfish and offer help.
I think that ties into something you said to me previously too, Nachum, was that there's no ranks in PTSD.
Yeah, I really believe in it. In trauma, in PTSD, you don't have ranks. It doesn't matter the background, what brought the symptoms. It's not a person from the army with PTSD is not suffering more than a person that have the trauma from, I don't know, an accident or any harassment based on gender, race, whatever. It's the same. And we should give it the same caring and loving and resources, not to be ashamed to say what we feel. And we don't need to put it on hierarchy, on ranks. So there is no ranks to trauma. When it hurts, it hurts. And we try, and we want a world with less hurting, less suffering, more communication, a thrivable world. There's a great lady from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Her name is Michelle Holiday. She have an amazing book, The Age of Thrivability. And she also speaks about thinking like a mother. And I really correlate with those ideas that she speaks about. When people think like a mother and want to nurture life, also it refers to the stone womb. So we echo that to our environment. And later on, as I learned, the environment echoes that back to us. And it brings me to the entire relationships humans have with nature, also between ourselves and also with nature. From the moment I was with more peace with myself, I was able to be with more communication and peace with the rest of the world and the nature, to be more aware. I want other people to have those tools and sensitivity goggles.
Well, that's beautiful. And maybe that helps circle us back to where we started and talking about growing plants and people. And for people who love the sound of what you're doing and they'd like to recreate an initiative like Borgani, what advice do you have?
First, be curious. Be curious is the most important thing. Look around, because I build my model through what I have in my environment. So every person having or her having their environment the means to start. And when you start, it doesn't matter if it's half a meter or on half a meter garden or 20 acres. When you start, don't stop, because nature doesn't stop and life doesn't stop. Go back and do more and learn more. And there's so many information online. And there's good people that making podcasts and sharing their knowledge and all kind of manuals. And you have all kind of NGOs that really bring in those how to grow anything and how to nurture the soil and how to do it in yourself or where to buy if you want something made already. To try and think in every little thing you do, how it refers to my inner world.
We're almost out of time, but one more thing we wanted to ask you. This is very garden related, but what is your favorite plant to grow?
It's one of the best questions a person could ask me, so thank you. My favorite plant is the olive tree. By far, I love all the plants, but the olive tree to me is also representing the relationship between the people and the planet and nature. And we can provide so many things if we nurture this tree and address it right. We can bring light and heat and medicine and food. And it's a very resilient plant that can teach us how to be flexible. It's really strong and can sustain droughts, and if it have the right conditions, it can bring so much abundance to all around. And I love the taste of the olives. Also, there's always the metaphor between olives and peace.
Yeah.
Olives and peace and resilience and the human spirit. Nachum, for people who are interested to find out more about Borgani, how can they find out more about Borgani?
Okay, so our exposure in social media is a little bit missing. We have a little Facebook, a little Instagram. We need to put more into it. We're building a website so we can share more from what we do and offer. And there's always the possibility to contact me through LinkedIn or through the Facebook, and I can share my contacts through you, so my email, so you can put it for people to have if they want to learn more or communicate, even visit.
That would be
Great.
wonderful to see. to see the stone quarry and all that you have going on to feed the farm.
Nachum, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for joining us today.
I thank you for having me. It's a big honor for me, and you got me all excited and smiley and happy. Thank you very much.
That was our chat with Nachum Lamour-Fridman. You can find his social media links and email in the show notes on the foodgardenlife.com website. What did you think? I was struck by the metaphor of the quarry as a stone womb, and how this former garbage dump has been transformed into a place of healing. Nachum also said, when you start, it doesn't matter if it's a 0.5 meter garden or 20 acres. When you start, don't stop, because nature doesn't stop and life doesn't stop. When he said that, I was thinking it's advice that's powerful for everybody. By the way, I should also mention that prior to the show, Nachum explained to me that Borgani translates roughly into pit garden, and so it's a nice play on words for this garden that's made in a former quarry. If this episode piqued your interest in the power of the garden to heal, you might like our podcast from April 2020 with Stephanie Rose about gardens and healing. The podcast is back next Thursday. We meet Toronto foodscaper Jeremy Cooper, who tells us about his path into growing food gardens and eventually turning that into a job as a foodscaper.
You can listen to past episodes of the Food Garden Life podcast on foodgardenlife.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
You're listening to the Food Garden Life Show. I'm Stephen Biggs.
And I'm Emma Biggs. Thanks for tuning in.